There we go. Lovely, excellent. So I'll just briefly welcome you to our webinar this afternoon. And what we'll do is we'll just give it a few moments for everyone to join, and then we should probably kick things off about 1:05 once everyone's joined us. So how was everyone with the weather last night? Because my house nearly blew down. Was it the same everywhere else?
Yeah, our fence is now propped up. It just completely unbelievable. I mean, I quite like that kind of weather. It's quite awe-inspiring somehow, isn't it? Really.
I'm a bit weird. I love weather like that.
I'm not the same. Thunderstorms and
But my summer gazebo we put up for a bit of shade was upside down this morning. My bins were on the street, so it was a bit of clearing up before I came to work. But
well, we have some chickens, and we had 4 new hens or chickens about a week ago. And I thought, at 10 o'clock last night, I better pop out and check they'd all got back into the coop before the door was shut on them. And one was out there in the run looking very scared, so I managed to let her back in. So, yeah.
All good fun. But I think we've got mixed weather for next week or so, haven't we, I think?
Yeah.
It's not really August we're looking for. I think we had our summer back in March, April time, didn't we?
Yeah. It does feel very autumnal today, I have to say.
Yeah. Cool, right, okay, what are we on? 2 minutes past. We'll give it a couple more moments. I think we've got a few more people to join us, so it's nice for people to join us during August. Most people are on holidays, I think, at this time of year, if you can get away. Has anyone managed to get a bit of a break before September kicks off? We all get a bit busier?
A little bit. Staycations, isn't it? We were actually due to go to Holland last week. We thought that was a good idea to go on the ferry.
Yeah.
Go across to Holland, to the beach outside of Amsterdam, but unfortunately that got cancelled, didn't it, due to the restrictions. It was due to leave on Sunday, and then Friday morning it was like, no, you're going to have to quarantine. So we went to Milton Keynes instead.
Oh, quite the same.
Well, I managed to get to Wales with my wife and the kids. So they were in and out the sea every day, and I'm now one of the rarest people in the world. I actually have a Welsh tan. You know, they're not known for the sun over there, but it was sunny every day, which was quite a surprise.
Wow, unbelievable.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm off for a few days now until a long bank holiday. It's first break since March, actually. So now the team has slowly come back from furlough. I can maybe turn off the emails for a couple of days, which I'm quite looking forward to. So.
It's really strange because, you know, we're now starting to go back into the office at County Hall, but up to now I've sort of worked from home since March. So although you're working, it doesn't really feel, and you do take a day off, you're still kind of working because you're still at home and homeschooling, doing all the DIY and everything else. It's a really, I'm desperate to get back into the office now. Yeah. I'm so tired of my home office. It's unbelievable.
Do you think the home working thing's done a complete 360 now?
I think a blend. I think most people want a blend, don't they, really? To sort of, I am desperate to get back into the office just to be able to concentrate on work and meet colleagues and have proper brainstorming. We do a Zoom call every morning with the sales team, and that's great. We've had a lot of fun, but you know, we need to meet face to face.
Yeah. Did anyone see the BBC article this morning?
Which one?
Which one?
On the BBC there's a main article. I think it was actually done in Birmingham, coincidentally. And it was in terms of a survey of 100 businesses, who's coming back, who isn't, who's part-time. It's quite an interesting read, actually. It's a bit of a mix at the moment. But as we just touched on offline, you know, there's a whole kind of, you could climb it around offices. And we need to get people back into workplaces in some kind of format. And it'll have a knock-on effect.
Right. But I think it's that blend, because we've got some great team that are working really hard at home, but they want to be in the office to see their colleagues. We want them in to feel the culture. There's certain things that you need to do as a collective, but then if they want to have a couple of days a week at home, then great. That improves their work-life balance. They're being as productive, if not more productive. So I think for office roles, I think that's the way that it'll go, end up with a blend.
Yeah, I mean, imagine, because there's like big businesses like Google, etc., saying, "Oh, we're not coming back until spring," etc. Imagine coming out of university, you know, grad, and you want to, you know, that banter in the office and meeting teams. You network internally in big businesses, don't you? And how can you do that via from home.
There's so much you learn. I mean, I have to admit, I'm one of those horrible people that still smokes. But the stuff that I pick up on my cigarette break, and I go out and I mix with different types of people, not just the sales team, but you know, the entire operational team. And you pick up stuff. You pick up what's really going on, what people are really thinking about. Because when you're a smoker and you're smoking with someone else, you're kind of on a level playing field. You're not a director. You're just someone who needs a light. And it's amazing. You pick up sort of what people are feeling, which they would never, you know, in an office environment, come and speak to me or send me an email, because that's far too formal. So there is a lot that you miss, I think, when you're not back in the office. You know, the whole water cooler moment or the coffee cooler moment, you know. So yeah, but I think, you know, I think most people are really keen. And I think also from a mental health point of view, just being in your own home, potentially with your children, oh my God, I can't get back. I can't get back quick enough, you know. You know, it's you have no delineation between work and home. And although your work-life balance can be benefit from working from home because you don't have to commute, I find that, you know, when I've been working from home, I'm working 24 hours because I will pick up my emails, my laptop's on constantly, you know, there's no delineation between what you're doing. And that can be quite stressful, I think.
Yeah, no, so you need to turn off. When I'm driving home, I do my last few calls and then my laptop's closed for the rest of the evening. But when you're working from home, it's, you just carry on sliding back to work, don't you?
Yeah.
No, I love, it's good to be back in the office. So I think everyone's joined us who's going to join us now. So, thanks for everyone for spending time in Wednesday afternoon to join our webinar, and hopefully you'll find some insightful views from two industry leaders really who quite recruit a lot of people week in, week out, and we'll have some hopefully good views on what a good interview will look like. So just to run through a bit of admin around our webinars. So those who haven't joined us before, we always try and keep them down to an hour. The purpose of the webinar is really an informal chat. We're not going to dictate what we think you should do, but hopefully you'll get some, and hopefully some contrasting views of what good looks like. So today, I think this is our fourth webinar, so we're slowly moving through the interview process week by week. And today we've already done kind of preparing for interviews and how to map out the jobs you look for, etc. So this week we're going to really focus on how to kind of ace that first interview, what a good interview look like. And there's a lot you can do before that interview, I feel, to have a real impact and make that impressions. And typically for us, a first stage interview is more about culture fit, personality, are you right for the business, before the second, third stage, which is typically more detailed. And we're going to cover that in later webinars in September. We're going to keep this down to an hour, so we don't interrupt the flow of the webinar and the conversation. We'll have a Q&A box which we'll come to at the end. If there's numerous questions, we'll try and answer as many as we can within the hour, but if not, we will come back to you directly and answer those questions or get answers for you. As always, we'll record it, so if you have to dash off and take a call or something happens, then you can come back and it'll be on our website within a few hours of today. And equally, if you find it interesting and intriguing, please feel free to share with your peers and colleagues and friends. So let me so I'm still getting used to this technology. Just pop this up. There we go. Cool. So yes, the agenda today. So to introduce our two guests today, so we've got Margaretha Welsford from etc.venues, who is the Sales and Marketing Director, and we've got Steve Jones, who's joining us from Wyboston Lakes. He's the Managing Director, and Adrian, who's part of Talent Hive. He's one of our senior business partners for the group. So can I leave you guys to introduce yourself? Is that okay? And you can tell the guests a bit more about what you do on a day-to-day basis. Yeah.
So I'm Margaretha, not Marge, not Margaretha. I'm director at etc.venues. So we run 16 venues in London, Birmingham, Manchester, and New York, and we're non-residential, really focused around design, service, and food. I've been with the company for 15 years, unbelievably, and seen it really grow from 4 venues up to where we are at the moment. And that's me.
Lovely, thank you.
Hi, Steve Jones, Managing Director at Wyboston Lakes Resort. So we just outside Bedford on the border of Cambridge. We've got a site that's nearly 400 acres, and we've got 2 conference centres and a hotel, spa, golf course, and serviced offices. So a diverse property that we run day to day. And I'm also the chair of the Meetings Industry Association.
Yeah. Lovely, thanks, Steve. What about you, Aid? What do you do?
Discussed this last week, Will. For anybody new on the call, so I've been with Will for 5 years after 15 years working in hotels. Started off at the Belfry in the Midlands, a big golf resort, and then moved to Q Hotels, where I spent 10 years before deciding on a different pace of life and starting a family, and here I am 5 years later.
Yeah, you did a good job, but he's still here, so yeah, he must be doing something right. So I just wanted to kick off today by launching a poll, just to find out who's joining us today and where they're at in terms of their kind of interview process. Because what I'm finding, a lot of candidates we're speaking to regularly are, we've got a lot of candidates who are suddenly out of work and they didn't plan to, due to redundancy typically, or businesses closing down, and maybe a lot of people out there who haven't interviewed quite a while. So I'd like to just throw a poll out there, just to find out when people last interviewed, really. Was it in the last 12 months, between 1 and 3 years, or is it anyone over 3 years, just to get a feel? Because I don't know about you, I think I'm 14 or 15 years into recruitment now. I think how you apply for jobs has definitely changed, and we've covered that in kind of previous webinars. But I think what you can do in an interview has kind of changed as well on the day. And I think probably in terms of what material is out there as well, in terms of when you're researching business, etc. I think employees expect applicants to know a bit more about their business and maybe have pre-networked within that business before they meet people. The powerfulness of LinkedIn, etc. wasn't there 10 years ago, or not everyone was on it 10 years ago. So I think there's higher expectations of when someone walks through your door, what they should know about your business. What's your views, guys, on, I guess the question I'm going to ask is, what would you expect from a candidate before they even walk through the door? What would you expect for them to have done?
Well, I think, you're absolutely right. It is about preparation. I would expect the candidate to obviously check our website, see who we are. I think perhaps things have changed now, where people are more, there's more people that are looking for jobs. But certainly in the high season, back in the 2019, where there was a lot of jobs out there and very few candidates, I was amazed by the people that came in, hadn't looked at our website, didn't really know what we did. I'd also think you need to look at the news. So what news stories are out there, what's happening in the industry, so that you come prepared with what can you, I'm a salesperson, so obviously it's salespeople that we recruit. So if there's a challenge in the industry, how can you help me overcome that challenge? The other thing, like you said, which is really key, is check your social media profile. I will always look at someone's social media profile, whether that be Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I want to see if you're a salesperson, that you're active on LinkedIn, and that you're promoting things that I find would fit well with our business. So that's pretty key. And also, I'm really surprised with the amount of candidates that don't come prepared with the job description that we've sent them. I'd expect you to read through the job description and ask me questions about it. I always ask, have you had the job description? Everyone says yes. Nobody asks me anything about the detail in it.
That's a good point.
I think to add to that, I think for any central roles, I agree with everything that's been said. So if we were looking in our finance or sales or marketing departments, if I look at our operations, so we're employing over 300 people that are working in housekeeping, kitchens, restaurants, bars. The same applies. It's people that turn up and they know nothing about the business. And what worries me with that is it's a two-way process. So how can they be finding the right role for them that's going to enrich them, that's going to give them the future they want if they've not bothered to find out anything? It's not just us trying to find out about the candidate. We really need that two-way. And of course, if you do any polls and you talk to millennials and Gen Zs coming through, they say, I want to know about the culture, I want the work-life balance, I want to know what's in for me. Well, do the homework. It's on the internet. You can do it. Sat at home is not difficult to do nowadays.
Yeah.
But the social channels, the issues, I think people often forget that their social profile is public, and they'll be posting things on there and going for an interview that week, and most recruiters are having a quick look to see what's easy to find out there. I don't think anyone's doing any onerous snooping, but they're having a quick look, and if there's something that's not going to go down well, perhaps just a little bit of forethought if you're in the middle of recruiting.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, it is a two-way conversation, and you talked about personality, and you can tell, I'm sure you're the same, you can tell in the first 5-10 minutes whether you click or not. I don't have to like someone, but I need to find out who their personality is. What I would love is to have not an interview with people. I don't want to have an interview. I sometimes feel I am just throwing questions at people. I want to have a conversation. I want to say something, and then I want you to ask me a question back. And let's have a conversation about the industry, about the role, about our business, about you. Sometimes it's so incredibly one-sided. Hi, what do you want to do in 5 years? If you were a car, what kind of car would you be? I mean, it's just old hat.
Yeah.
But, let me also say, hi, what do you want in life? Let's have a conversation. And what infuriates me is when I ask at the end, do you have any questions? And they go, no, you've answered everything. I just find that's a straight no for me.
Which is impossible, really, isn't it, in an hour?
But I tell you what I find frustrating, if you get to the end of an interview and the person leaves and you think, I don't know why they want to work here. Why can't we have that open, honest conversation? Because sometimes you'll be thinking, that person's overqualified, or they've done this other job, or they're changing, or the salary's not right. And if they just tell you the truth, to go, oh, right, what happened is, well, we relocated, my partner's got this, and I do want this, and this has changed in my life. And you think, well, if I knew that would have scored higher. But when you don't know, you always think, is this a stopgap? Do you not really want this job? You didn't show. And just tell the truth. So many people, they spend their life creating these little mysteries. I think, I'm quite a straightforward guy. Just tell me what the truth is, and I'm sure we can work this out between us. And it's not that difficult, is it? So.
And I think you're right. I mean, I always say to candidates, listen, I know you've applied for a particular role, fine, because that's the job description we've got out there. But I'm not interested in that role. I want to understand where you could fit in with us and etc.venues. It's surprising the amount of times, actually, I'll interview someone for a sales role, and actually, they'd rather be an events manager, or they'd rather actually have a goal to become general manager. So, and that's fine. So let's forget about the role. Let's just understand, what do you want to do? And like you say, be really open with that. And we have recruited people who, they've applied for an ops role, and actually, hey, you're a great salesperson. Let's get you into the sales team. So, trying to not be so boxed in and really see this as opportunity to get in front of a company that has a plethora of different roles. And particularly if you're growing, or if you're a large site like Wyboston is, there's all sorts of different opportunities. You don't know what's in the background in our heads in terms of what our plans are for the future.
Yeah, just extending that. Some of the best recruitment we do is we partner with clients who just say, send us the right people. We've got a big enough organisation. We have lots of roles. Look at our culture, look at our fit. When you find a candidate who you think would be right, we'll meet them, and it's a coffee chat. And they might have a role then, or they might have a role in 12 months' time, but that's some of the best recruitment. You find the right individuals, then find a role for them, rather than trying to find, that whole square peg, round hole kind of scenario. So,
because I really like it when we take somebody on into whatever role, and then they stay with us, and we keep enhancing their career. And I take the view as a single site. I can't have everybody's career mapped out. I can't have the best jobs for everyone 5-10 years from now, but I can make them ready for that next role. So if they leave me for that next role, they don't just get it, they keep it. But I think, you can be flattered by your CV sometimes because of where you've worked, but it might not mean you've got the skills to do that same job elsewhere. So we try really hard to make sure that they do that job, they do it well, they do it to industry standards. And often we find as a byproduct of that, they end up staying with us, taking another role in the organisation because they were then ready for it. So we get them ready, and we know we'll lose a lot of people because we can't just keep creating roles and roles and roles. But those that we keep there, they're amazing because they're ready for that next step up, and they've had a better time with us.
Yeah, and that's the benefit if you're a growing business, and very similar to us. I also think it's okay for people to leave. Particularly the younger guys, go away and get some experience, and then come back I mean, that is beautiful. You know, we've had some sales guys who've gone into different industries, whether they're become a client or whether they become an agency, and then they do a couple of years and they come back with a wealth of experience. So yeah, definitely agree on all of those points.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I'm just going to quickly go back to the poll because I completely forgot about it. So we've got a mixture of people on the webinar. So kind of 55% of people have interviewed within the last 12 months. And interestingly, there's 36% of the people on here today. It's been over 3 years, which is kind of in theme with what we're finding. A lot of candidates coming to us, and a lot of people who didn't expect to be in this situation. So I wanted to skip back to when I'm interviewing for us, we do a couple of hires a year. When we interview, when we talk about what do you know about Talent Hive, or what do you know about Wyboston or etc.venues, how do you feel about when someone just regurgitates your website to you? Is that impressive or is that not?
No. I know my own website. I mean, I love when someone comes with a presentation and says, I've got something prepared for you. That ticks a big box for me.
Yeah.
But if that presentation is, you have 16 venues, your USPs are designed food and technology, I know that, okay? So I'm not asking them to present my business. But if they come with a presentation to say, oh, I think that January is a slower period for most meeting venues. Here are some ideas that I would do. In my first 3 months, these are the things that I would research. That doesn't have to be correct. We can have a discussion about it. But the fact they've looked at the job description and thought, okay, I'm in a proactive role, for example, this is what I would do to get business. Or if I'm in a reactive role, this is what I would do to try and convert business. To come with a solution, but don't regurgitate. I know my own website.
Yeah, I think it's that looking, and regardless of what the role is, so if it was a chef, I'd expect them to look at the website, have opened up the menus, had a read them, and be asking questions. Oh, I saw on the menu, you have X, Y, and Z on. How do you prepare that? Where do you source that from? Or do you change that menu seasoning? Whatever, but relevant to that part of the business. What I'm looking for is that they've not just read and recited, that they've understood. And when they ask questions, I see that as a sign of confidence, that they've read some information and then they're asking back, I didn't understand this bit, or what does that bit mean, or how, particularly, it's a fairly complicated business here with service offices and spa and conferences. It's not a hotel that's quite straightforward or something that's defined. So often people have got questions, but that is a benefit. And often it starts that conversation going. And then you can get into that conversation because they've got them a couple of bits that you've got something tangible to talk about because you don't know this person. You've read a bit of information, they've read a bit of information. You're trying to spark that conversation off.
I think the thing that I would recommend people is, you mentioned preparation, which obviously is key, but the key thing to prepare is and I do this in any situation, I'll do this with a client. Any meeting that I've got with people, what 3 things do I want that person to remember? Okay, so I am interviewing, what do I want me, Marg, to remember from that candidate? Because you've got to realize, I see a lot of candidates, you've got to stand out. So if you think about 3 things that you want to get across, whether that's your personality, your private life, your past experience, your successes, your whatever, and then make sure that they get across. Because you can't, there's a lot in your CV, but there's 3 things that you want me to remember. So when I go back to my HR team and they said, oh, how was the interview? I go, oh, well, actually, these 3 things stood out for me. That's what you need to do. What do you want to get across and how are you going to do it?
No, I like that.
And I don't think it's about gimmicks, but it is, say, making yourself stand out. We took on a training manager a couple of years ago. She had it was second to, she had time to present, and she handed out some little cars, and this was part of the presentation, was talking about the features of these cars. I remember it a few years on, and I do very few interviews nowadays because she bothered to make herself stand out, and she's outstanding. She's got an amazing personality. So without being overbearing, she managed to put that personality across to show a little bit of how she does what she does. I thought it was a very clever way of working it in.
It's matching, you're right, absolutely, no gimmicks, but it's matching what you do with the type of company that you're looking for. So if you're going to a more traditional hotel steeped in culture, You know, I remember I interviewed ages ago for a very, very well-known, incredibly high-class hotel where a certain Kate spent her wedding night, or the day before she got married, right? Beautiful place. And they asked me, you know, what do you do with VIP guests? Because, you know, obviously they've got helicopter pad and all these people come in. And I stupidly said, oh, for me, all clients are VIP. Well, that was the wrong answer, because that is a different market, and I didn't get the job. You know, but that's, you know, you need to think about what gimmick or what am I doing, and how does that match the company? It can be as simple as a background. I think, you know, a lot of meetings now, a lot of interviews will be over Zoom. So, you know, what background have you got behind you? Does that match the company? It can be, you know, those tiny little things. There's a lot of first impressions, I think. I'm not asking, well, our company color is pink. I'm not expecting people to come dressed in pink head to toe. But, you know, there's small things that you can do. And I will always comment if someone's got a pink scarf, I go, oh, wow, you know, you've got the company color on. Yeah. That's not difficult to do, to research. Equally, obviously, if you're going for a more traditional role, you don't want to look too flamboyant, you know. So it's matching what the company has. Yeah. I always recruit on our company values, and those are on our website. And I do say to every candidate at the end of the interview, I said, listen, I always have our 4 company values in the back of my head. And they're energy, commitment, trust, and originality. So those are the 4 things that we recruit on. Most websites, you will be able to see what the company values are. And then you need to match yourself to those company values if you agree with them. If you don't go for the role.
Yeah. That's right. I think values and cultural fit are the most important thing. I think we're decades past the point of just go and get a job. It is now going into an organisation where you feel that you can add value, because if you don't, if your heart's not in it, it'll show. It'll show in the work, and you may have been very, very successful at interviewing, but you may not be able to then keep that role. You may fail the probation because you're not walking the walk. And I think you've got to have a sense of belonging and feeling that that's the right environment for me. Particularly as most companies now are led by the values. There are still a few out there, but on the whole, most companies now, you know, their core purpose, their core values is at the heart of what they do. And the ones that know that are the businesses that succeed. And through times like this will carry on trading. Those that don't, sadly, are some of the ones that are struggling.
Let's be honest, if we talk about the hospitality sector, it's not brain surgery. I can teach you how to take an inquiry. I can teach you how to set up a conference room. You know, it's not, you don't need years of experience to do it. What you do need, the right attitude and the right fit and the right personality. And that's what I'm checking on the
absolutely.
Or the coffee chat, which I'd love to rename it to.
No, it should be. Sometimes I phrase them as coffee chats because it hopefully shakes the candidate out of this formal being something they're not, putting an impression on that it isn't them, isn't genuine. It is a chat. It's 2 humans. Okay, one is hiring and one's looking for a job. And it's 2 humans chatting.
Yeah, and certainly at a sort of more senior level, if we get to the point that we're thinking there could be something coming up, someone said, look, I might be going, this is what could be happening in my life, and there's people that we know often, we just say, let's have a coffee chat. Because rather than going through the whole formal process of this is where we may be, so I to narrow it down at that stage, I don't see the point in us spending hours and hours sat interviewing lots and lots of candidates. The sooner I have proper formal interviews with 1 or 2, because we've already had coffee chats because a lot of people, you know, if you can speak to them open and honestly, they'll go, yeah, it is too far for it to commute on. No, the salary isn't in the range. We don't have to sit through 2 hours to get to that point and find, oh, I do need to be in the office every day. Oh, and you're only paying that. It's not for me. Let's get some of those bits dealt with. And then let's invest our quality time in really talking about the detail if it is a progressible.
Yeah.
I would also say don't get discouraged if you don't get the job, because you don't know what's coming up in the future. Again, this is a personal experience. When I interviewed for etc.venues 16 years ago, I didn't get the job. And then, you know, and I was gutted, but, you know, end of the day, I stayed where I was. 6 months later, they called me up. I was on holiday. I remember it vividly. My phone rang, and they said the first candidate that we employed didn't work out. Are you interested? So you just don't know, because, you know, as interviewers, of course, we try and do as best we can, but sometimes we get it wrong. Sometimes, you know, the match isn't right.
And I think people forget as well
just how you get it first time. You know, stay in contact. You know, check us on LinkedIn. You know.
Yeah. I think people forget just how small an industry is. And again, you can interview, someone doesn't get the role, they're not right for that role in that property on that day. But 6 months, 12 months later, that person's moved on. There's someone else in the industry, and they go, do you know what? I saw a great candidate for that role. What was their name again? They get back in touch with the recruiter. Remember, you sent me such a body. And I think, often that's what happens, because as the recruiter, you often know, you think, I know that person's right for me. It's just not the right role, but there may be a role for them in time. So you should always hold your head held high, even if you don't get the role.
Yeah, follow up emails, keep in touch, absolutely. And keep track of what they're doing as well. And if you have gone through a recruitment agency, keep speaking to them, because they'll know what's going on in that business.
Well, and they'll be able to make that introduction if it comes back up in the future. That against the power of the relationship.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to on the poll where there was this, when you last interviewed, the people that haven't interviewed for over 3 years. If that was someone coming to see me, I'd like them just to tell me that as well. Yeah. And yes, they'll probably see their CV and see they've been there for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, but I don't know if they've been looking, if they've had lots of interviews. But if they've genuinely not had an interview for 4, 5, 6 years, I don't think there's any shame in saying that and just saying, this is my first interview for 5 years. And I just go, quite okay. But I think that'd be nice to know, because that might also help you understand that person's a bit more nervous than you'd expect for their seniority or their experience. Because it is nerve-wracking, no matter who you are, no matter what the grade of job, it's still quite an unnatural thing. Come sit before me, tell me how you're good enough. No matter how nice we try and make it, it's not a normal social thing. So anything that someone can tell you to help you put them at ease is a benefit to the person doing the interview.
Yeah.
Say you're nervous. Say you're nervous. That's okay.
Yeah.
No one's naturally interviewing. And especially those who maybe have extra pressure to get a job in the current climate would probably put extra pressure on them. So I think honesty is probably definitely the best policy in terms of that. A bit of an icebreaker as well, isn't it, really? In terms of explaining where you're at. So another area I just really wanted to kind of touch on is kind of first impressions. We've always found when we've got candidates going for interview, they forget that everyone in the building is looking at them, not just the person they're interviewing. Have you got any stories that you've had candidates or applicants come for interviews, but they've really messed up when they walk through the door, maybe how they interact with reception teams, etc.? Have you had any of that?
Not particularly. I have to say that, most people we see, it's about smiling, I think, you can be nervous, but, we're in service and hospitality industry. So, as long as you are nice to people, I don't have anyone who's been rude, because, what would be the point, really, No, not really, to be honest with you.
I've no particular horror stories, but people often, frequently, the general managers and the HR managers will tell me, people still just forget the basics. Did they turn up 5 or 10 minutes early? We don't want them an hour early, but did they turn up 5 or 10 minutes early? Did they bring the information they were asked to bring with them? If that was an ID or if it was a piece of certification, or did they bother to bring it with them? Were they presentable? And by that, I don't mean wearing a shirt and tie, but were they presentable for the job they were coming for? And I'd quite like to see people's personalities coming out. If people have got tattoos and different coloured hairs, no problem whatsoever. But was it appropriate for the interview? Was it clean? Was it tidy? The clothes that they chose to put on, were they right for the environment they were going into? And I think that's where they sometimes just let themselves down. Because by that point, they are 1-0 down, and then if they say something silly to the receptionist, of, oh God, I'm running late now, I overslept and I missed this, that receptionist will pass that comment on. To Margaretha's point now, everyone is looking at you as you come in the building. So it's just that preparation, being organised, but appropriate, not starched, appropriate, with personality showing.
I think you've actually reminded me of one thing that really turns me off and drives me slightly mental, is where people rock up half an hour early and I get a call from reception saying your candidate's here. Well, that's great, but I don't want to see you. Sit in a coffee shop until 5 minutes in advance, because you're stressing me out and I don't want you sitting in my reception. So I'm sorry, that is a big pet peeve of mine, because I've got other things to do and I might be in another interview, and that is just stressing me out. Come 5-10 minutes early, that's fine. Don't sit in my reception for half an hour, because I don't get it. You've got other things to do. And then the classic handshake, a limp handshake will put me off as well. I'm sorry. It's just, you know, I want people with energy, with sort of, you know, some originality. Again, those are our staff values. So if you have a limp handshake, sort it out.
I live an hour and a half away from Wyboston, and I joined this business 5 years ago. So, no, nearly 6 years ago when I was first interviewed, it was a long sort of lead-in. But I remember driving over, leaving a good 2 hours because you never tell the traffic, and there's a sort of a beefeater or something opposite, and popping in there. And I was one of their frequent customers for a few weeks buying coffees because I'd only want to get here 10 minutes early. I didn't want to impose myself on them half an hour, 40 minutes early. At the same time, I didn't want to risk the traffic. But I thought that through. It wasn't complicated to think through. I need to get from A to B. I'll be early. I'll get there for a coffee. Then at the appropriate time, I shall cross the road. Not difficult stuff. Yeah. But that level of just thinking it through does make a difference to the overall appearance that you put across.
Oh, I like that.
And obviously have your CV to hand, have your JD to hand, you know, have your questions to hand, know what you want to get across. Yeah. One of the things, I was just looking at the chat there, and it was talking about, you know, being too keen or whatever, or following up. Again, I recruit mostly salespeople. So one of the things that I do at the end of the interviews, I will pass people my business card. Hey, remember those? And I only use them for interviews. And I'll pass it to the candidate, and I'll say, listen, if you feel that you didn't get anything across that you want to get across, because sometimes you're nervous and you go, oh shit, I should have said that, right? Or if you've got any further questions, feel free to contact me directly. Now, I know, and this is not saying I'm cutting out the agency, by the way, Talent Hive. So but I want them to know that if they, you know, we've had a personal relationship, and I want you to come back to me if you have any questions. But it's actually a little bit of a test. If you're a salesperson and someone gives you a business card, send me an email. Okay, just say it was nice to meet you. That's fine. Equally, if I don't give you my business card, do not you dare to find out my email address and contact me, because that pisses me off. Okay, so if you're invited to contact me, please do so, because that is what I'm expecting you to do as a salesperson. But do not try and find my email address on our website and send me unsolicited emails, because that pisses me off.
Good advice there. But no, if we have follow-up emails come to us, we will forward it across the client. We kind of encourage it, you know.
Yeah. Again, it's a conversation, but you know, but it's interesting how many salespeople I will give a card to and say, if you have any further questions, please give me a call or send me an email. Yeah. And I don't hear anything.
Do you think the climate might change now? We're in, you know, it's now a client market. Yeah.
I think
it was just, I think there was, and you just touched on it in 2019. I think there was generally just too many jobs.
Yeah.
And people weren't fussed. They were like, oh, I've got 2 or 3 other interviews, and they didn't. It was very hard to. Well, you need them to want this job, don't you? And it's very hard when they've got so many options out there.
So and it's better, like you said, about the honesty. Tell me after 5 to 10 minutes in the conversation, going, do you know what? This really doesn't suit me. Great. Rather than just sort of being cold on me and sort of going, oh yeah, well, whatever, you know.
Yeah, be honest. What about building rapport during an interview? What techniques would you expect? Or even, you know, I know you guys have both settled into your roles and probably years since you ever thought about going for another interview, but how would you, when, you know, Marg, you're a few more years, 15 years, when you were last interviewing, how would you build rapport in an interview with someone who's interviewing you?
Well, I think it's the same as any client meeting you've got, really. I mean, if you're in sales and you've done a show round, the classic is sit, walk, sit. So you sit down and you sort of have your introductory, oh, the weather's nice, or how was the storm? You know, that little sort of, oh, how was your journey? Do you want a coffee? Oh, I like your scarf. You know, those little things. And then there's the sit, walk, sit. So although you might not be walking in an interview situation, but, you know, set out what you want to talk about it, and then recap it. So in terms of rapport, I think it is just trying to be very human, you know, and again, we're in the hospitality industry. If you think about, if you're in events and you're in operations and a guest walks up to you, what do? You smile, you go, hi, how can I help you? You have open body language, you ask questions. It's exactly the same with me, you know, just be very open, use your body language, use your smile to sort of say, hi, it's really great to be here. And, you know, oh, I love your office. I mean, there's little tiny things that as a salesperson you should do when you walk into a client's office. And as an operations person, you do on a daily basis, because you're meeting strangers that are walking up to you. It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
I think it is, yeah. I think in any of the roles, it's the same. It's starting that conversation. It's finding a way, but it's being genuine, not false. So don't start the conversation trying to build rapport, saying, "Well, I love your website," or "I love this property." If you don't, if that's not you, because that'll come across. But if there's just a way of just starting, "Oh, I've had a look at the information online. Yeah, obviously I'm keen to hear more from you today." Anything just to get that wheel start to turn about that conversation, because you can't build rapport if you're just answering questions. You've got to get a genuine conversation going.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
There are some questions.
And how would a candidate really kind of stand out from the crowd for you?
I tell you what frustrates me, so what therefore makes people stand out, is when you're asking questions and it's about their CV, the history, and say, well, yeah, the property went from A to B, or this refurbishment happened, or this reposition, or we grew this, or we achieved that, and never say what they did. They always say what the property or the venue or the company did. And I was itching to get to, yeah, but what did you do? What was your part in this? Yeah. And it may be a small part, but I don't have an issue with that. Now, if we all play a small part, we get to the sum total. But people are good to go, oh yeah, it was a big £5 million refurbishment and the sales doubled over 5 years. You go, that's great. It was the kitchen porter. What did you do? Yeah. And you sometimes struggle to get that from people. And again, if people can tell you genuinely, this was the part I played and I knew my part, I think I'm able to do more now, hence why I'm sat before you. But when I did my part, I did that part to the best of my abilities. And that always impresses me.
I think you're right. There's a lot of we's in interview situation. We did this, we did that, but I want to hear about what you did. I think in terms of standing out for me would be someone who has spoken to the agency, spoken to Talent Hive, and understand why I'm recruiting. So, is this someone who's going on maternity leave? Is this someone who's left? Is this a new position? Read through the job description and then come to me and say, from what I understand, this is what you need. This is what etc.venues needs this position to do. I can do this by 1, 2, 3. So, why am I recruiting? Is this a new role that actually sales are down, so I need to get some more salespeople in? Or have I got too many inquiries, so I need some more coordinators? I can help you and come with a solution, because that's why I'm recruiting. I need help. Yeah. I mean, I'm not recruiting because it's nice to have lots of people to have a coffee with. I'm recruiting because I have a problem and I need someone to help me. So I want the candidate to say, this is how I think I can support etc.venues in what you're trying to achieve. This is my background. This is how I will help you overcome that challenge.
Yeah, it's just adding a bit more context, really, a bit more.
And talk to the agencies. Yeah, I mean, you guys will know a lot more about us than we probably know ourselves.
Well, we'd like the candidates to ask why they're recruiting. Are they losing people? Are they growing? What's in it for me, etc. So it's all something. And go back to Steve's comment on what have you done rather than what have we done. When we interview and screen candidates, we'll literally extract achievements out of each role, write them down, and before they go for interview, we're going, look, you did this in your last role. Make sure during that conversation you tell them what you've done.
Correct.
You need to sell yourself rather than maybe presume the interviewer actually knows what you've done, or what the property looks like, or it's been refurbished, or there's a capex project, or it's the sales figures have grown X, Y, and Z.
And adapt your CV to that, so just on the CV point, I still get CVs that are 6 pages long and I don't read them. And I still get CVs that have the entire job description in bullet points. I don't read them. So, a short, snappy CV as to what you've actually done and the relevant points for that position that you're applying for.
Yeah.
And I still get CVs with spelling mistakes in them, which is a straight no for me.
2 pages?
Yeah, I think
it's relevant, and I don't need to know what you did 15 years ago.
Yeah, so I think a couple of pages, keep it short, concise. As Mike says, we just want to hear what are the actual main bullets, where have you been, have you stayed around, did you show progression within those organisations, did you start in one role and move to another? That always impresses me. They saw something in you and they wanted you to stay with them. And 10% tailoring. I think people often have the CV. You're right, but if you're going to go for 3 interviews, if you tailor 10% for the job you're going for, if it's the same job 3 times over, fine. But if one's a proactive sales and one's it's more reactive, we'll tailor it ever so slightly to show what experience you've got in that specifics of that job.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
If there's a gap in your CV, don't wait for me to ask the question, because I will ask the question, what did you do in the 2 years in between your 2 jobs? Write it on your CV. There's nothing wrong with people taking a gap. I completely applaud that. And whether that's looking after family, whether that's traveling, whether that's charitable, but tell me what you did in those 2 years. If you were job hunting, that's fine, but put it in there what you did while you were job hunting.
No, absolutely.
I'll ask you.
Well, with the problem is, if people leave a gap, people love filling them in. So if you leave a gap and don't explain what you were doing, you can fill it in with all sorts. Well, they were obviously in prison, they were obviously sacked, they couldn't get a job. Which when they go, oh no, well, we had a new baby and we spent 18 months travelling around. Great.
Great,
You know, wish I had done that. Yeah. Fill in those blanks. Yeah.
And actually, we've alluded on previous webinars, we've now got candidates who are, currently in Sainsbury's supermarkets because they can't get a job in hospitality. I love hearing stuff like that.
But at least you're doing something. That's the key. Otherwise, like say, I'll assume you've sat on your arse for 2 years.
Yeah. Completing Netflix. So what about, just going to quickly cover it because I'm behind schedule, but I just really want to cover this point. What about, how have you seen, especially to those who haven't interviewed for over 3 years, what techniques of interviews have you seen change? Because we obviously seeing lots of psychometric testing, we're seeing lots more presentations, we look assessment days for a lot of my clients are coming back into vogue. I mean, how have you seen stuff change, and what kind of interviews could you expect at the moment?
Well, I know what the interviews that I'd be involved in would be more senior management, and what we tend to do and say is, well, coffee chat to try and filter, then we'll get to a first interview, and then if you're invited back for a second interview, then what we do is we pair up 4 or 6 of our senior teams, so they'll have 2 or 3 short interviews, meeting 4 or 6 of the people that be on the same grade as, working alongside, because at that point we're all about cultural fit, and we do psychometric tests as well, and then the final interview then is really dotting the I's. So it goes from coffee, are these narrowed down, to an interview, yeah, we think we've got a good candidate here, they seem to like us, we seem to like them, got the right skill set, cultural fit. Seeing quite a few of that, and I appreciate seeing 6 of what coming new colleagues sounds like a lot, but we try and keep it brief. But it does really break down the barriers, and it's very informal. Then dotting the I's, double checking the psychometric test if it's a senior role before we go to make an appointment. But we put all that structure in the back at the start. We provide all the information, and we keep the timeline quite concise. I don't like these things to drag on for weeks and weeks. People want to know. You're not successful, they want to be moving on to something else. So it sounds a lot, but it's actually quite a speedy process.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think some things have changed, but some things really remain the same. It is about people and about a conversation, as we've mentioned. I think, like I said, the things to me that have changed is that in the past it might just be one person interviewing. I think you're right. I think now you're seeing different people. I might do the first interview, but then I would expect the second interview to be done with other people. We never interview just one person at a time, as in from etc. There's always 2 people interviewing one candidate, because I do a lot of talking because I'm a salesperson, so I need someone to listen and write down notes. And then the next time will be 2 other people. So there is a 360 in terms of the candidates. So expect to see lots of different people. Expect to regurgitate some of your answers, because that's what happens. And like I said, the LinkedIn profile, the social media thing really needs to be. People need to be aware that as much as you can check me in etc.venues, I can also check you online.
Yeah, it's powerful. And just adding to Steve's piece was, I know I've seen Steve's brief, so he's quite regimented on what an interview process looks like, which is fantastic, but not everyone does that. So if you're not via an agency should tell you what the interview process looks like, so you can prepare yourself. Is it 1 stage, 3 stages, psychometrics, presentations? Because some people don't want to do presentations, so you might do stage 1 and 2, and then there's a presentation. So be prepared for that. So ask the recruiter you're working with. They should know. If they don't, they're not doing their job. But if you're going directly to employers, ask them, what does it look like? What do I need to prepare for, etc. So no, some good stuff in there. Great, guys. I think we've covered some really good points, and some points I wouldn't have kind of touched on, actually. The arriving to interviews too early is is really good to know. 10 minutes is the golden number. Hey, just turning to you. So every week we like to give a bit of an update of what the job market's doing. What's the latest date?
There's still roles coming up in all sectors of hospitality. We're seeing new roles, F&B manager roles. I think there's been a lot of restructuring across the industry, and I think that has created roles at all levels. Commis chefs, CDP. There's a lot of roles out there at the moment. I think as well, we'll probably see a bit more of a boom in a couple of weeks. We are still, I think some holidays have disappeared because everyone's been furloughed and closed for the last 5 months. So we do need to realise we are actually still in the summer holidays. So normally that is a quiet time for recruitment. So we're hoping, when schools go back, and we're hoping we're going to see businesses start to come back into the offices, we can see things start to sort of move in the right direction. We are still waiting for, announcements, and, you two guys here today are obviously waiting for the government to sort of, release events to open up. And that's a sector that is, struggling the most at the moment. But, if we keep moving in the right direction, then we are seeing the signs of recovery. So, yeah.
I think that's a good point in terms of what's changing just now. Is that the people that we have now, and as people return to work, are expected to work much more cross-divisional than what we have in the past. So you've already mentioned, general managers doing housekeeping, but if you're in sales, you might need to help in operations. If you're in sales and you're proactive, you might be doing invoicing. So there's a lot more flexibility, because obviously we are keen to keep our costs down, and that might mean that some of these job functions become broader than what they have been in the past, at least for an interim, for a short term.
No, definitely for that. People's job descriptions are being rewritten as a result of that, and unfortunately we've all got to dig deep at the moment, haven't we, really, and support the businesses who have kept you on, and everyone's got to do stuff that they probably wouldn't have done pre-COVID, but it's be grateful, but not that's not for everyone, and therefore people are actually leaving jobs because of it, because they don't want to do it, or they don't.
Absolutely. So be prepared and know, and ask the question. We expect people in sales to be able to work evenings and weekends if you've got site visits.
Yeah,
if that doesn't work for you, then be honest. That's fine. You might still get the job, but if you find that difficult to commit to, then I need to know that in advance.
Yeah, but going back to the job market, there is stuff on at the moment. We have assignments week on week now. We're increasing the amount of assignments we're working on, so people are recruiting. But those who are probably kind of looking at job boards every hour of the day, just remember we're still in August. We've got a few milestones to get through. Kids going back to school is a huge one. The government releasing information about venues, etc. And then we've got a few pilot schemes for large venues that will be coming up as well. So I'm optimistic. I keep getting laughed at on the phone with candidates and clients at the moment, but I think we're going to get back sooner than we expect, and jobs will be coming on even more, I reckon, in September. So thanks for that, Aid. So we've got a couple of questions to answer, and I quite like the final one here, actually, which is what we always have as a recruiter. So how long until you'd reconsider or re-interview a poor candidate who's had a bad interview? Maybe they were a little bit rusty to start with, or just didn't perform on the day. I mean, sometimes we have clients who are literally a flat no, I will not see a candidate again if they're unsuccessful. Maybe if we kind of think about if they're a poor candidate or unsuccessful for a few minor things, or maybe the wrong role, would you reconsider candidates who have been unsuccessful previously?
Again, it's a conversation. So if you do a bad interview, you're really nervous, the train was late, you came in sweaty, and you just think, oh shit, that was a really bad interview. Call up the agent and say, I did a really bad interview, I'm really sorry, and feed that back to me, and I might actually see you again. Because if you're honest and say, I really didn't get that across, I was having a really bad day, my cat just died, tell me, and maybe I'll see you again. But if you go silent on me, I probably won't.
Yeah, and in answer to your question, I couldn't put a time on it, but it depends on the specifics of what the role was, who the person was, what was it that made it not the best of interview. But certainly no blanket rule, no, not see them again. And I know we've repeated over the last hour, honesty, tell the truth, engage with us. But I think it's worth repeating, because people don't do it. They think it's some mythical world of recruitment, and they go into it and they start to put this shield up. You think, just tell us the truth. It's really easy. It's all, you don't have to remember if you're not telling lies. If something's gone wrong, let us know, because you've got a chance. At that point, if Margaretha says, if you think you've lost it anyway, what you've got to do is by telling the truth and saying this happened. Because if it went bad, it was bad at that point. You've got a chance to salvage it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Good to hear, because some of our clients will and some won't. Someone's just asked, actually, it's just come in. So I just mentioned that their biggest fear is hours. And can I apply for jobs and ask for hours to be changed? I guess I'm going to kind of preempt this. It might be depends on the job itself, but yeah, how do you feel if someone, it might be childcare needs or some other requirements? Are you quite flexible?
Again, be honest with me. So if you've got childcare difficulties, you've got young children going into nursery, I get it. I get it. And that's not going to be forever. So, you know, be honest with me and say, you know, for the first 6 months while I'm putting my kid into school, is it okay? Fine. You know, generally that's not an issue. And like we said, you know, we recruit people because we want them to stay for us for a long time. So whatever issues you might have with timings at the moment, if it's a short-term thing, that's not a problem.
I think sometimes people are, because I know we've advertised roles before now as full-time, and then when the candidates have applied, they said, but I can only do 32 hours, not full-time. Is that a problem? But I expect to be paid pro rata. And we've been over the moon. We've only really wanted that, but we thought we'll never find someone for that. So we've advertised it as full-time, thinking it would make it more appealing and a higher salary. And they've turned out to be really dedicated, long-standing, hard-working people, because it's a great job that empowers them, that keeps everyone together, and it works for them. And it works for us. So I think there should always be that open conversation about it. Because the flip to that is, if there isn't that flexibility, you're going to take a job that's going to cause you problems at home. And the last thing you want is to go, well, yes, I got some more money coming in, but I've now got a problem at home because my life's not working because I've took this job because the travel's too bad. I remember, I'm going back nearly 20 years, I had a reservations manager, and she said to me, can I start 10 minutes later every day? If I do that, I'll be able to take my little girl to school, and then I can save whatever it was, a few £100 a month in childcare costs. I have to pay for the hour, even though she's only there for 10 minutes. But you know, I'll take the pay cut. And I remember saying to her, start 10 minutes late. You don't need the pay cut. You're always coming to the old fan trip and things that we do with the customers anyway. You know, you'll make your time back up through the year. But what a difference that made to her life. She stayed for a long, long time because it was a great job. She enjoyed doing, and it fit for her family. She just told me the truth and the reason why. So you know, we worked it around.
Most people are flexible in terms of start and finish date. The only thing I would say is if it is a full-time position and you're not able to do full-time, it's probably best that I know that in advance. Don't spring it on me in the interview. It's probably best to tell the agency then calls me and I go, well, that's okay, you know. Probably that's
definitely preempt it, because it wouldn't half kill an interview, I think, when you say can they do 4 days a week. I think on that 3-4 days a week, I think as employers, everyone's a lot more understanding that people have commitments outside of work. I mean, I think when we all started in the career, it was kind of 70-hour weeks, and we loved the job, and it was all encompassing. And I remember my parents thinking I was an absolute nutter for the hours I used to work. But yeah, I think as a hospitality as a whole, I think we've got out of that old age kind of thinking that, you know, an employer should be dedicated every hour of their day to us. I think we're a lot more understanding.
And I think the interesting thing with COVID, actually, one of the benefits of the COVID thing is actually how close and personal we've gotten to people, both clients and team members. Because if you're doing a Zoom call, you'll hear kids, you'll hear pets, you've got hoovering in the background. And actually, I found that quite fun. I've gotten to know things about my sales team I never would have known otherwise, you know, because people recognise that there is a home situation that you don't always see otherwise. And same thing with clients, you know. Yeah.
It's made everything a bit more human, hasn't it, really? Yeah, which is great. And yeah, I've been on video calls with clients, and my daughter's walked through the door, and it's, you know, oh, I didn't realise you had a daughter. There we go. She's only just opening doors now, actually. She's only 18 months. So no, that's good. There's one final question, actually. I think we've covered a little bit of it, but I do quite like it. Can you over-prepare for an interview? And can someone be too keen? I think we might have mentioned that last bit, but can you over-prepare?
No, you can't over-prepare, but I think just, and I have a tendency to do this, is that if you're excited about something, you can talk too much and you can talk too quick. I then blame it on my dulcet northern tones, but that gets me so far. But it's just remembering to slow down, breathe. This person doesn't know everything you're trying to put across. Because you can, and particularly if you've done a lot of research, you have a lot of information, you want to show that you've done that. It's great to see energy, but you just sometimes have to tether it a bit if you know that's a tendency you've got.
Yeah, I think the skill of listening, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. And maybe regurgitating the same points over and over again is a huge turn off for me. Lovely. Well, thanks for answering those questions, guys. That's really useful. Let me pop that on. Bear with 2 seconds. Lovely. So yeah, thank you. Big thanks to everyone who's joined us today. Some really good points in there. So next week we have quite an interesting topic. So we're going to start talking about how to conduct yourself throughout the whole of the interview process. So that's anything from booking in an interview to how you conduct yourself, because if you're dealing with a direct employer, making sure you come across right on the phone, and maybe how to even just apply for a job in the first place. So, and then looking all the way towards kind of how to accept a job properly and do things right. And then we've got Paul Allen, who's Managing Director of Olive Catering, joining us, as well as Graham Cook, who's the CEO from All Star Lanes. So they will have some really good insight on that. So, so big thanks to Margaret and Steve for joining us today. It's really appreciate it. As we just touched on at the beginning of the webinar, we're all very, very busy. So yeah, I appreciate you sparing your time. And just a reminder, we have recorded this webinar, which we posted on our website in the next few hours. So yeah, feel free to share. And yeah, big thank you. And Aid, thanks for joining as well. And I'll speak to you all soon. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.